Hi friends, I'm getting ready for work and I just felt compelled to make a little video and share some stuff with you. So I feel like this morning the news has just been pretty terrible. What's new, right? But I wanted to also talk about a podcast I just listened to. So I've been listening to the 5-4 podcast for a while. It's a podcast about Supreme Court cases that have threatened Americans, or that continue to threaten Americans. And the episode I listened to today is about a case from the 1940s in California where a woman married a Scottish man and they continued to live in California. And because at that time, I guess, the court felt that like women who got married were essentially becoming the property of their husbands, she lost her American citizenship. They denied her, they stripped her of her citizenship. And to be clear, she was born and raised in the United States of America. She was considered American until the day she got married, at which point they said, well, he's Scottish, so therefore you cannot be an American anymore. And the reason that I want everyone to go and listen to this, and I will put a link on my page and everywhere, is that there are so many people that I've talked to that seem to think that this entire election is about Palestine, Gaza, Israel, what Netanyahu's doing, what Hamas has done, etc., etc. And I want you to know that there's a lot more at stake. And when we talk about Project 2025, I feel like the conversation just centers around women and women's rights and abortion and all of that. And what gets not mentioned nearly enough is that there is this plan to deport 20 million people. There are not 20 million undocumented people in the United States right now. I'm going to repeat that. There are not 20 million undocumented people in the United States. So when they say they're going to deport 20 million people, what they're saying is they're going to find people to declare illegal and undocumented and not Americans. And they will do that by stripping people of their citizenship. This podcast is the first time that I've heard anyone talk on a serious platform about this very seriously. I feel like it's mentioned in passing sometimes in other places, but it really worries me that even the Democrats are starting to take a very hard right stance on immigration and demonize immigrants, even while they're saying, hey, they don't eat cats and dogs, but like also like, let's tighten our borders and make sure they don't get in, right? And we all know who they mean by they. It's non-white people. So I want to just say, and I'm getting really activated around this, but because it affects me, that if you read Project 2025, there is a plan to strip Americans of citizenship, to put them in detention camps, aka concentration camps. And if you think that can't happen, ask your German or Japanese friends if they have a grandparent perhaps who was put in a concentration camp in the United States of America. Because here in Milwaukee, what is now Haven Woods Natural Forest, Nature Center, all of that used to be a military base, and they detained German Americans. They detained Americans of German descent in a concentration camp here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I'm from California, and there are multiple concentration camps where Japanese Americans of Japanese descent were detained. Many of them had been born and raised in the United States, just like me. And I want to say just like me really clearly, because here's the thing. This case from the 40s is a historic precedent for putting me in a concentration camp, because my father was not born in the United States. He is an American citizen now, but under the regime of somebody like Stephen Miller and other Trump people in Trump's, close circle, it would be very easy to say that my father is not an American citizen, that he possibly could never have become an American citizen, because they're going to make shit up and say that, something about the way he became a citizen was false. They're going to say that at the time that my mother married him, the fact that she married a foreigner makes her not a citizen, even though she was born and raised in the United States and both of her parents were. So if my two parents are not citizens, guess what that makes me? Also not a citizen. If we don't have birthright citizenship, we don't have diddly shit in this country. And if you're sitting there and you're on the fence and you're like, I don't know who I'm going to vote for because this thing in Gaza is such a stressful, okay, fine. I understand that that's stressful. And I also want you to know that you're saying you're okay with me being thrown into a concentration camp and being deported and being declared no longer an American citizen, even though I have spent my entire life here. I've never known any other country as home. I've only ever visited other places. And you're saying that that's okay, and I refuse to take your very real possible situation seriously because I'm more committed to my narrative about how somehow me not voting or being undecided is going to make a difference, right? I think we should all be clear that we have two parties that are not particularly interested in Palestinian freedom. So you got to ask yourself, what's the deal breaker then? What's going to make you vote one way or another? And what are you okay with having happen? So yeah, I highly recommend you listen to this podcast. 5-4, it is a podcast by 3 lawyers who look at Supreme Court cases and, just sort of break down what they mean and the effects that they've had. So yeah, and please vote. And please vote for the person who's least likely to throw me into a concentration camp. Thanks.